Every MLB team's 2026 offseason explained, starting with the Colorado Rockies. Yeah, they did absolutely nothing. They lost a few players and gained a few players, but honestly, nothing really notable. It's the Rockies, unfortunately. What do you expect? Though the same cannot be said for our next team, which is the San Diego Padres, who actually had a really busy offseason. They had a ton of signings this offseason, including Sun Moon Song from the KBO on a 4-year, $15 million deal, and he was actually really good this WBC as well. This is a really safe but high upside signing for the Padres to go along with re-signing Michael King to a big boy contract. They also signed a lot of 1-year deals to Nick Castellanos, Griffin Canning, Miguel Andujar, all the while signing past Dodger stars Walker Buehler and Alex Verdugo to minor league deals, which I still love those guys as a Dodger fan. They had a lot of signings, but it might not actually help them in the long run because they had major losses of players such as Dylan Cease, Luis Ariz, Robert Suarez, and Ryan O'Hearn. Yeah, those are some big losses, but unlike the Padres, the San Francisco Giants lost practically nobody this offseason. Andrew Kisner and Justin Verlander were literally the only 2 losses for them this offseason. They had pretty good signings to go ahead and pair with this loss. They had major signings such as Harrison Bader and Luis Ariz, who can really help them with their weak offense from last year. They also went ahead and signed pitchers such as Tyler Mahle, Adrian Hauser, Jason Foley, and Sam Hentages to a 1-year deal. The most interesting part of this 2026 offseason for the Giants, though, is the fact that they signed a college coach as their manager. Tony Vitello was the former manager of the University of Tennessee, who was now signed to a multi-year $3.5 million deal. He has no past experience with coaching above the college level, so that will for sure be interesting on the Giants' part. We'll see how that goes. So all in all, the Giants had a pretty good offseason, but the Los Angeles Dodgers had an even better one. They were towards the bottom of a number of transactions this offseason, yet all of their transactions were done with intention. They signed 2 new major stars in Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker, the best in their respected positions. They also went ahead and re-signed stars such as Miguel Rojas, Kike Hernandez, and Evan Phillips. Along with this, they only lost 3 players in Kirby Yates, Anthony Bonda, and Michael Conforto. Yeah, as a Dodgers fan, I really will miss Anthony Bonda. The Dodgers are just one of the smartest teams when it comes to signing, and maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Dodgers fan, but whatever, I don't care. But yeah, the Dodgers had a very little 8 transactions this year, whereas a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks had a very eventful offseason with 15 transactions. The D-backs notably traded for Nolan Arenado from the Cardinals and acquired Merrill Kelly, Michael Soroka, Cade Stroud, Carlos Santana, and re-signed Zach Gallen. As you can tell, they signed a lot of pitchers, which will definitely help their horrible pitching performance last year. Along with this, they only lost 4 players, being Jake McCarthy, Blaze Alexander, Kyle Backus, and Jalen Beeks. Overall, a pretty good offseason. They addressed their main issue, and that's all you can ask really in an offseason. Now, if you are enjoying, make sure to go ahead and like the video and subscribe, as we are moving on to the NL Central team, starting with the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds have had a pretty decent offseason, signing both Eugenio Suarez and JJ Bleday to 1-year deals. They also somehow managed to get Nathaniel Lowe, who had 18 home runs and 84 RBIs with the Red Sox last year, to agree to a minor league deal. Like, what? You're telling me nobody wanted to sign this dude to a major league deal? Huh? But whatever. On the pitching side of things, they acquired Pierce Johnson, Caleb Ferguson, Brock Burke, and re-signed Emilio Pagan. Pretty decent signings, but they ended up losing players like Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes, Miguel Andujar, and some pitchers. Overall, I would say that their acquisitions just barely topped their losses. But unlike them, the Milwaukee Brewers lost a lot more than they gained this offseason. They had 9 acquisitions while losing 12 players this offseason. They got players such as Brandon Sproat, Angel Zerpa, David Hamilton, Gary Sanchez, and Akil Badu. Badu. I'm sorry, you got to do that every time you say the name. I'm sorry. Now, these players are alright, but the losses they undertook are absolutely massive. They traded a bunch of stars this offseason, including Freddie Peralta to the Mets, Isaac Collins, Caleb Duran, Andrew Monasterio, Tobias Myers, Nick Mears. On top of this, they lost players such as Jordan Montgomery, Shelby Miller, Jose Quintana, Reese Hoskins, and Danny Jansen to other teams as well. I mean, talk about a horrible offseason for the fans. You trade away all your star talent for a bunch of guys who are not even developed yet. Now, keep in mind, they also had the most wins in the major leagues last season. Like, they should not be trading away all of their stars. In no way should they have gone into rebuild mode yet again. I mean, they trade away all of their stars. I would hate to be a Brewers fan. You never get to see a star player on your team for more than like a couple seasons before they're traded away and gone. They don't want to re-sign any of these guys, and that will be the death of them, honestly. But yeah, man, that was just kind of disgusting. Though, a team that surprisingly did not have a disgusting offseason was the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah, I never thought I would be saying those words in my mouth. It's been a while since the Pirates have actually done anything notable, but it's finally happened. They actually had a good offseason, man. They acquired big names such as Brandon Lau, Ryan O'Hearn, Marcell Ozuna, Gregory Soto, Jake Mangum, and Mason Montgomery. They did all this while only giving up 3 pitchers, but the longtime Pirate as well, Andrew McCutchen, which kind of stinks for them. But while the Pirates had a surprisingly good offseason, the St. Louis Cardinals has a surprisingly bad of a lot. But yeah, the Cardinals had a total of 14 transactions, but the Chicago Cubs actually had a lot more with 23 transactions this offseason. They had some pretty good pitching additions this offseason, adding Edward Cabrera, Hunter Harvey, Phil Maton, Caleb Thielber, Shelby Miller, Hobie Milner, Jacob Webb, plus they also re-signed Shota Imanaga. That is a great set of pitchers right there that all for the most part have really good numbers last year. Then they also went ahead and signed Alex Bregman to a 5-year deal and signed Michael Conforto to a minor league deal. With these additions, the Cubs actually don't look too bad this year, but the subtractions may take away from these good signings. They lost Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers and also lost Andrew Kittredge, Brad Keller, Willie Castro, Michael Soroka, Drew Pomeranz, Taylor Rogers, Owen Casey, Carlos Santana, Aaron Savali, and Ryan Brazier. A lot of good pitchers, and Alex Bregman is a huge loss for this team, but overall, I would say they did a pretty good job replacing all the lost talent. Now let's go ahead and move straight on to the NL East teams, starting with the Philadelphia Phillies. They had a pretty interesting offseason that, in my opinion, went pretty bad, but you can argue about it. They lost players such as Ranger Suarez, Harrison Bader, Matt Strom, Jordan Romano, and Walker Buehler. Some pretty big losses for sure, but they went ahead and added some pieces to their roster as well, which include Brad Keller, Adolis Garcia, Jonathan Bolin, while also being able to re-sign Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto. Overall, I do not think these acquisitions were enough to cover the losses that the Phillies took this offseason, and thank goodness they were able to re-sign Schwarber, because if not, this would have been a horrible offseason for them. I mean, their playoff window is closing really quickly, and with signings like this, I don't think they're going to be able to do much. Now, hey, go ahead and prove me wrong. You never know. But yeah, while the Phillies had 15 transactions this offseason, the New York Mets had an absolutely insane 29 of them. Out of these guys, there were 12 additions and 17 subtractions. For the acquisitions, the Mets signed big name players like Bo Bichette, Freddie Peralta, Devin Williams, Jorge Polanco, Luke Weaver, and Luis Garcia. They also went ahead and traded for Freddie Peralta, Luis Robert Jr., Tobias Myers, and Marcus Semien. These were some incredible signings, but do they make up for the subtractions of players such as Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Tyler Rogers, Luis Angel Acuna Jr., Cedric Mullins, Starling Marte, Ryan Helsley, Gregory Soto, Cooper Criswell, Drew Smith, Brandon Sproat, and Jet Williams. Oh my god. Jeez, that was a lot. It's really interesting from the Mets because they basically just built a whole entire new team from the ground up, which is something the Atlanta Braves definitely did not do, with only 4 subtractions this offseason. These 4 subtractions were Alek Manoah, Nick Allen, Pierce Johnson, and the longtime Brave Marcell Ozuna to the Pirates. Pretty big loss there from Ozuna, but they added a lot more to compensate for Ozuna's departure. They first went ahead and picked up one of the best closers in the league, Robert Suarez, then signed names like Hae-Sung Kim, Mike Yastrzemski, Raisel Iglesias, Mauricio Dubon, Martin Perez, Jonah Heim, and Tyler Kinley. Some pretty good pickups for the Braves. I expect them to be a very good team again next year. In my opinion, 2025 was just a fluke for them. Other than Ozuna, the Braves kept their core set of guys intact, which was something the Miami Marlins did not do. They actually ended up trading 5 of their everyday players this offseason that fans were really beginning to like. These 5 players being Eric Wagaman, Dane Myers, Joey Weimer, Ryan Weathers, and Edward Cabrera. Now that is all for their subtractions, so on to the additions for the Marlins. This offseason, they acquired Owen Casey, the dude who went off for Team Canada this WBC, Pete Fairbanks, Christopher Morel, Estuary Ruiz, John King, and Chris Paddock. There were a couple of good pickups in there for sure, but all in all, I think they had a pretty bad offseason. I would have liked to see more for them because they had a really fun team last year, and I would have loved to see them build on that. Now, the same exact thing could be said for the Washington Nationals 2026 offseason. They gave up pitchers such as Mackenzie Gore and Jose A. Ferrer in trades, while also giving up Josh Bell and Paul DeJong. to free agency. The only real notable people that they were able to attain this offseason were Zach Littell and Miles Michaelis. Like, those were literally the only two major leaguers they got this offseason, and still aren't big names in the slightest bit. It's just wild to me. They aren't even really trying to get better while they have generational talent such as James Wood and Dylan Cruz on their roster. Alright, well, enough of that, man. We're out of the National League now. We're starting into the American League with the AL West. For our first team in there, let's go ahead and start off with the Seattle Mariners. The main highlight of this offseason for them was re-signing Josh Naylor to a 5-year extension. They also went ahead and acquired Brendan Donovan, Rob Refsnyder, Jose A. Ferrer, Cooper Criswell, Mitch Garver, and Andrew Knizner. Also got a pretty cool baseball card of Andrew Knizner. I had to throw that out there. Y'all better leave me some support in the comments for that. If not, you're mean. But yeah, they had some pretty decent pickups for sure. But doesn't make it for the losses, in your opinion, of Eugenio Suarez, Jorge Polanco, Harry Ford, Caleb Ferguson, and Ben Williamson. I really feel like they should have gone after more people this offseason, especially since they made a good run last October. But I mean, Brendan Donovan's decent. I'm glad they got the extensions, and they got some other decent names. Overall, the Mariners lost more than they gained this offseason, which can't be said for the Oakland A's. Or is it the Sacramento A's? I don't even know. Their situation when it comes to names is just confusing at this point. The reason for this is the A's only give up 2 players this offseason, in Sean Newcomb and one of my favorite names to say, JJ Bleday. Now, those two were actually pretty good last offseason, but they were the only 2 people to walk in free agency, and that is saying something. Especially when you realize for the first time in what feels like forever, they were actually extending some of their young talent. They re-signed both Tyler Soderstrom and Jacob Wilson, both to a 7-year extension, while also making sure to re-sign Shea Langoliers to a 1-year extension. They've also made sure to be in talks with the 2025 AL Rookie of the Year winner, Nick Kurtz, about re-signing with the A's, but he has not yet signed anything. To go along with these re-signings, they went ahead and got Jeff McNeil in a trade with the Mets, as well as signing Aaron Savali, Mark Leiter Jr., and Scott Barlow. Overall, good offseason from the A's, who have a very bright future if they keep this up. Now, the A's had a surprisingly good offseason, and the same could be said with the Los Angeles Angels, in my opinion. They went ahead and had themselves an eventful offseason by trading for Grayson Rodriguez and Josh Lowe, plus signing Kirby Yates, Alex Manoah, Yon Moncada, Drew Pomeranz, Jordan Romano, Brent Suter, Hunter Strickland, and Dodgers legend Chris Taylor to a minor league contract. Meanwhile, they went ahead and lost Taylor Ward, Kenley Jansen, Brock Burke, and Luis Rengifo. I honestly can't tell if this offseason was good or bad for them, but I guess it all just relies on if Grayson Rodriguez can be as good as he is supposed to be this year for them. While the Angels acquired one main person this offseason, the Astros did the same thing. This one guy the Astros acquired is the guy that says he wants to actually come after the Dodgers, and that is Tatsuya Imai. He signed a 3-year deal with them, and the Astros also went ahead and acquired Mike Burrows, Nick Allen, Joey Loperfido, and Ryan Weiss. Some extra people, but nobody crazy to go ahead and compensate for a very disappointing team in the 2025 Astros. Pretty disappointing signings in my opinion, especially when you see they lost players such as Framber Valdez, Mauricio Dubon, Jacob Melton, Jesus Sanchez, Ramon Urias, Victor Carantini, Craig Kimbrell, and Brendan Rodgers. I got another cool card with Brendan Rodgers. Just saying. The Astros didn't add a ton of people this offseason, which is the exact opposite of the other Texas team, the Texas Rangers. They got some pretty big names this offseason, including Mackenzie Gore, Brandon Nimmo, Danny Jansen, Jordan Montgomery, Jacob Junis, Jalen Beeks, Tyler Alexander, and the brother of Edwin Diaz, Alexis Diaz. They also signed many minor league deals with players such as Austin Gomber, Ryan Brazier, Cal Quantrill, and Andrew McCutchen. Some great signings for sure, but they also had some pretty huge losses in Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Merrill Kelly, Phil Madden, Hobie Milner, Sean Armstrong, Danny Colomb, Tyler Molly, Jonah Heim, Gavin Feen, Dylan Moore, and lastly, Rowdy Tellez. Now moving on to the AL Central, we have the Minnesota Twins. The Twins only lost 3 players in this offseason in Edouard Julien, Christian Vasquez, and Pearson Ole. And they went ahead and acquired names such as Victor Carantini, Josh Bell, Taylor Rogers, and another great Dodger in Anthony Bonda. They also signed some minor league contracts to notable names like Liam Hendricks, Orlando Arcia, Gio Urshela, and Andrew Chafin. While the Twins had barely any losses, the Cleveland Guardians had more losses than acquisitions this offseason. The Guardians only acquired 3 new players and lost 6. Their additions this offseason were Colin Holderman, Sean Armstrong, and Reese Hoskins to a minor league deal. And and the 6 lost were Lane Thomas, Sam Hentages, Jacob Junis, John Means, Will Brennan, and Tristan McKenzie. This is another case of an absolutely awful season for a team that made the playoffs last year and didn't do too horrible at all. I mean, they were honestly just wasting Jose Ramirez's talent with their management issues. The Guardians only had 9 transactions this offseason, but a team that had a whole lot more was the Kansas City Royals. The Royals actually had 19 transactions this offseason, 10 additions and 9 losses. Notable signings were Lane Thomas, Starling Marte, and Alex Lange. Not a ton of signings, but there were some good trade additions in Matt Strom from the Phillies, Isaac Collins and Nick Mears from the Brewers, and Cameron Meisner from the Rays. This is pretty good, but they did lose Angel Zerpa and Jonathan Bolin in trades while losing other players in free agency. Players such as Mike Yastrzemski, Michael Lorenzen, MJ Melendez, Randall Kritchuk, Hunter Harvey, Taylor Clark, and Adam Frazier to free agency. Now, I'm honestly not sure if they did well in this offseason or not, but I can't say the same for the Chicago White Sox. With major signings such as the Japanese legend Munetaka Murakami, the White Sox offseason is looking pretty good. They also went ahead and signed Sir Anthony Dominguez, Anthony Kay, Austin Hayes, and Sean Newcomb. They also went ahead and traded for Jordan Hicks and Luis Angel Acuna, which their GM thought was a switch hitter, but really isn't. But obviously, that's a story for another day because we are moving on to their losses. Martin Perez, Tyler Alexander, Miguel Castro, Michael A. Taylor, Mike Tauchman, and the biggest blow of them all, Luis Robert Jr. Besides losing Luis Robert, this offseason was a pretty dang good one for the White Sox, in my opinion. Another team that had a pretty dang good offseason, in my opinion, was the Detroit Tigers. They gained some significant players in Framber Valdez, Justin Verlander, Kenley Jansen, and re-signed Gleyber Torres and Kyle Finnegan. This gives them one of the best rotations in the whole entire league, but we have to go ahead and talk about their subtractions. This offseason, they lost Jason Foley, Jose Urquidy, Chase Lee, Chris Paddock, Paul Sewald, Rafael Montero, and Tommy Kahnle. All around good offseason for the Tigers. And that is all for the AL Central. Now let's go into the AL East, our final division, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays. This offseason, the Rays had 7 additions and 9 losses. They signed Steven Matz, Nick Martinez, Cedric Mullins, and re-signed Jake Fraley while trading for Ben Williamson, Jacob Milting, and another guy I still love, Gavin Lux. Some decent signings, but I'm not sure if it makes up for losing players such as Brandon Lau, Josh Lowe, Shane Baz, Jake Mangum, Mason Montgomery, and Cameron Meisner all in trades. They also lost Adrian Hauser and Christopher Morel in free agency. Overall, I am pretty uncertain on how this went for them. But one team that I am very certain in my opinion on is the New York Yankees. They somehow managed to not sign a single new big leader this offseason and got 2 players from trades, being Ryan Weathers and Angel Chevili. The rest of what they did were re-signing people like Trent Grisham, Ryan Yarbrough, Paul Goldschmidt, Ahmed Rosario, Paul Blackburn, and one of my favorite Dodgers players from a long time ago, Cody Bellinger. Not only this, but they went ahead and lost Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, Mark Leiter Jr., Ian Hamilton, Jonathan Loaziga, and Austin Slater. Man, I butchered that name so bad, but whatever. Overall, a pretty weak offseason from the Yankees, and I guess at least they re-signed a bunch of guys. But for being the all-time most recognized team, this was very underwhelming, and I mean, especially for the Yankee standards. Like, they didn't even sign a single new name. It's insane to me. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Yankees' rivals, the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox had a pretty good offseason in my opinion, signing Ranger Suarez to a 5-year deal and trading for Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, Caleb Durbin, Johan Oviedo, and Andrew Monasterio. They also signed some pretty safe minor league contracts to Brendan Rodgers and Tommy Kahnle. Good signings, but they did lose Alex Bregman this offseason along with a huge list of pitchers and Rob Refsnyder as well. Overall, they lost a ton of players and pitchers mainly, but also made up with signing even more pitchers and overall had a very good offseason. Now, another team that had a great offseason was the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles absolutely went off this offseason, signing Pete Alonso to a 5-year deal, which is super crazy. Then they also went ahead and signed Chris Bassett, Ryan Helsley, and Leody Taveras, along with trading for huge players such as Shane Baz, Taylor Ward, Blaze Alexander, and Andrew Kittredge. Very good signings to go along with barely any losses for Baltimore other than having to give up Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward, but he's rarely even healthy anyway, so who cares. This will make the 2026 Orioles a very fun team. Now, another team that will be very fun to watch in 2026 is our final team in the video, the Toronto Blue Jays. They might have had an even better offseason than the Orioles, signing only big-name players this offseason. For their additions, we have Dylan Cease to a 7-year deal, the Japanese legend Kazuma Okamoto to a 4-year deal, Cody Ponce, who finds himself getting a 3-year deal after winning KBO MVP last year. They also went ahead and signed a really high upside deal in Eloy Jimenez, who went off in the past with the White Sox, to a minor league deal. Also, they re-signed Max Scherzer and traded for Jesus Sanchez and Chase Lee. Very good stuff, but they did end up losing players like Chris Bassett, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Joey Loperfido, Isaiah Kiner Falefa, Ty France, and finally Bo Bichette to the Mets, which is just insane. He's been there for so long that it just doesn't look right to see him in a Mets uniform. Sucks to lose him, but the signings definitely overrule losing Bo. I can 100% see this Blue Jays team making another deep playoff run like last year with all these new signings. But yeah, man, this video took me so long to make. Golly, but that is finally it. If y'all enjoyed, please do like and subscribe to the Tacos Dugout channel, and I will see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.